On February 13th, 2023, the residents of Gualala, California, and the nearby Sea Ranch awoke to find that the Gualala Community Center had suffered terrible damage in an early morning fire. Two of the center's three buildings were completely destroyed. The loss of the community center impacts many social and charitable organizations, including the popular Pay and Take. Kevin Evans, board chair, talks with This Sea Ranch Life about the devastation and how the community center hopes to move forward.
Hey, good afternoon. You're watching This Sea Ranch Life. Today, we've got a special guest, Kevin Evans. Kevin is the board chair of the Gualala Community Center, and if you viewers have been paying attention at all, the community center has suffered a tragedy, and I thought it'd be great to hear from Kevin directly. Hey, good afternoon, Kevin. Glad to have you here.
Hello, George. Thank you for the invitation.
You bet. Well, it was last Monday, which was, I'm sorry, what was the date of last Monday?
13th.
It was February 13th. No, that's auspicious. It was February 13th, and a lot of us woke up and we saw news starting to filter out about a serious fire at the community center. Tell us from your perspective, what happened and when did you learn about it, and what did you do immediately at that point?
Well, the fire department received a call at about 3 o'clock in the morning on the 13th. And they contacted one of our board members right around 5 o'clock, and they contacted me at about 5:15, and they said, there's a fire at the community center and you better get down there. So I did. So I arrived on the scene about 5:30, and to the astonishment of seeing two of the main buildings of the community center completely ablaze.
Wow, that must have been quite a shock.
It was, I guess, it was a gut punch. It just took my breath away to see the devastation from that the fire had created.
Yeah. Tell us about how much damage. You mentioned that two of the three buildings. Explain to our viewers that the setup of buildings at the community center and which two were damaged and how bad the damage has been.
Oh, my pleasure. The Gualala Community Center is a 3-building complex. The 2 buildings that burned were actually built by volunteers, many of them involved with the timber companies here in Gualala 69 years ago.
Wow.
And it was a labor of love and their vision to provide a facility for the community. So it's that historic building that one of the areas that burned. It included our main hall. It had the kitchen. So that facility served not only as a staging area for our Pay and Take program, but also was a place that people could hold private events, their weddings, their anniversaries, their birthdays. It was well utilized by our nonprofit service clubs, the Rotary Club, the Sir Optimus, and the Lions, as they held their annual events, the crab feed, the chili cook-off. A lot of those events were housed right out of the main building of the Gualala Community Center.
Kevin,
the other building that burned was the main building for the clothing department.
Okay.
So that was it was mainly staged for that.
We'll come back. That's the Pay and Take clothing department.
Yes.
We'll come back to that and talk a little bit more for our folks who aren't familiar with Pay and Take. But how bad is the damage? Can it be repaired, or is it just a total loss, or what's the situation?
It's a total loss, unfortunately.
Wow.
And they're estimating right now that it's going to be somewhere about $1.5 to $2 million to replace the building.
Wow. Okay. So that's a pretty steep sum.
It is.
And I'm guessing that like a lot of local organizations, you don't have $1.5 million or $2 million sitting in the bank at this moment.
And no, we sure don't.
Okay. So that's got to be rebuilt if that in fact is your intention. Talk a little bit about, you did talk a little bit, but can expand a little bit more on the role of the community center and why is it so important? Why, I've noticed a lot of folks who are very upset with this, and it seems to me a lot of fond memories from past times in the community center. Talk about the place that the community center has on our coast.
The community center was the main focal point of our community. It was an old iconic building that was there to provide a place for the community. It was a great place that people would just congregate, see old friends. It was probably the center of all action in Gualala.
Wow. And tell me again, you mentioned a few of the organizations that use the community center. Run down that list, at least from memory. Everybody who made use of the facility.
Well, it was a main facility for the congregate meal and Meals on Wheels program for the seniors. So coastal seniors utilized the facility for their events. And that was let me interrupt you here. That was those meals was that a monthly or twice? I don't remember. It was a regular. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Oh no, go ahead. Sorry.
It was a regular meal where anybody could come and get a good hot meal, I guess, for free or a minimal donation.
Yes, it was a minimal donation, and when I experienced it, they were serving it twice a month. So they would have 2 meals up in Point Arena, and they would have 2 meals down in Gualala.
Okay.
So that, yeah.
Right.
It was a main part of our community was serving the seniors, the senior population.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And Coastal Seniors actually produced the meals and ran the event, and I'm sure there were many volunteers who stepped up to help with those events. Talk about some of the other service. So you mentioned the Rotary, and who else?
The Rotary Club, the Gualala Lions Club, the Seroptimus Club, all utilized it. Our local churches had events there.
Okay.
It also served as the home base for the Gualala Municipal Advisory Council, so they would hold their regular meetings there once a month.
Right.
Yeah, it housed a lot of the activities and events that took place on a regular basis in Gualala.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it was really the only, probably the only space that was available for those groups to have particularly large meetings or public meetings. There really isn't any place else where all that could be done. I mean, maybe the Arts Center to some degree, but you guys have been there for a long time.
And one of the benefits that we had is that we had a industrial kitchen, a commercial kitchen on site, so the public could hold events there and produce meals,
right,
for either private events or the public events.
So a family could say, we're going to have a wedding reception. We're planning a wedding. We want to have a wedding reception. I could have used your main hall for that, plus the kitchen.
Absolutely.
Or a family reunion, or almost any event where you had a large number of people.
Absolutely right. And
yeah,
it was really a comfort to know that even when people needed to plan a celebration of life, that they knew that the community center was a full service operation that could provide anything they may need during that celebration.
Yeah, and a commercial kitchen is essential to be able to host events like that size. You can't pull up with a Coleman stove out of the back of your pickup and try and serve 100 people. You've got to have a real functioning kitchen, and it has to be a commercial kitchen with all the requirements that go with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, very cool. You mentioned a little bit before about pay and take, but talk to our viewers who don't know, what is pay and take, and why was it important?
Pay and take probably is the hallmark activity that the Gualala Community Center hosts in our community. We receive generous donations from the community, from books, electrical and furniture items, houseware goods, and clothing. And we also, and as also in our kitchen, we had an excellent chef that made pastries that were sold the first Saturday of the month. So it gave people an opportunity to bring their items that they no longer wish to keep to a central facility, and others that might be in need of those particular supplies could come and purchase them at a nominal fee. And it was a great service to the community.
Yeah, I myself have dropped off items at pay and take at various times, and you're right. It was especially if you had something that was, well, even clothing. You know,
Mhm.
I kind of hate the idea of throwing out clothing, and I understand you needed pay and take wanted things of a certain quality. You didn't want ratty old torn up clothing, but still, most of us, are fortunate enough that we purchase new clothing, and we have to purge our closets or our household of things that we no longer need or no longer use. And it was just really great to be able to drop things off. So anyone could walk in on the pay and take days, look through the stuff that was available for sale, and then purchase it. And you mentioned that it was a minimal amount or a small donation. So I'm assuming that was directed at people maybe of limited means who needed to shop for clothing or furniture or electronic goods or whatever, and they could do it at a really reduced cost.
Exactly. That definitely was the vision and the mission of the founding group, to give back to the community. And that was one of the ways that they felt, is to be able to provide affordable items to those in our community. And
Yeah.
It's been a great benefit to everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. I always hear from folks, they say, "Oh, I found this or that at pay and take. Oh, I got this great bargain on. I was looking for this certain kind of bowl in my kitchen or whatever, and I found it there, and I picked, and it was a great deal." And pay and take also generated some amount of revenue for the community centers, and that is that correct?
Absolutely. Matter of fact, this past year, the community center was able to award $49,000 to the to various groups, and actually 8 graduating seniors last year from Point Arena High School received scholarships, 2 $1,000 scholarships, thanks to the generous contributions of the community. We've been able to do that.
Wow. So that's really commendable. So that you're not just making money for the sake of making money. You're putting it back into the community through other organizations or the scholarships like you're talking about. So this isn't really a money-making deal.
No.
Yeah. You're truly a nonprofit organization is what we'd say, because whatever you make goes back to the community in some fashion. That's great. Now I had heard something, and perhaps you can clarify this, or maybe I saw this online, that pay and take is going to somehow continue to operate, or some part of it is going to operate. Can you tell us what's going on there?
Well, pay and take's a hard one to say we're closed.
Yeah.
Nobody ever wants to say that. So what we're doing right now is we're going to have, on this Saturday, tomorrow, We're going to open up the furniture and electric department and the book department. And what we're trying to do is consolidate items where we might be able to bring a small component of clothing into the existing building right now, as well with the housewares.
Okay.
And try and keep that going, because we know that the public looks for that service. And we're also reaching out to the community to try and find some rental space in the downtown area that we can open up and expand and have a shop for clothing and a shop for houseware, so we can continue the program even in a satellite area.
Okay. So pay and take is going to continue. It might look a little bit different than what we're used to. You might change locations or add a location as however that works out, but your plan at this moment is pay and take in some form is still going to keep going.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic. That's great. I recall, and I'm sure folks who have dropped off goods at pay and take, seems to me like whenever I've stopped by, there's a lot of volunteers working there, a lot of people doing stuff, receiving stuff and, organizing it and doing whatever. Talk to us a little bit about volunteers and the role of volunteers at the community center.
Our volunteer program is very, very unique because we have a lot of people that have been volunteering, especially in the respective departments, for many, many, many years. It's their social interaction. It's their way to give back to the community. And more so than anything else, they just have a really good time. They enjoy the camaraderie of the people in their respective departments, but they also love the public interaction. And it's amazing how many people that you're now on a first name basis because of the fact that you met them at pay and take.
That's really great. That speaks a lot to that role, that social role, that social gathering thing that you were talking about. Kevin, let's talk a little bit about what you see happening going forward. I'm sure you and your board have had a number of conversations and discussions. Where do you see things? What's your game plan as far as you know it right now?
Well, our game plan is to rebuild, and we are going to utilize every funding mechanism we can, whether it be through our insurance, whether it be collaboration with other groups, finding grants that might be available to help rebuild the building, but more importantly, just the very kind and generous donations from the community. Yeah. And I do have to preface that by saying a day after the fire, I was contacted by a local resident who said that they would offer $100,000 to the rebuilding fund as a matching fund campaign to encourage the rest of the community to get involved. So
that's a really generous.
Absolutely. Yeah. They wanted to get the ball rolling, and we're so thankful for that. And we hope that many more people will also feel like that they would like to also support the rebuilding project of the community center.
Yeah, what a great first step that someone came to you like that and making a very sizable contribution. And I think the matching, and saying we'll match dollar for dollar with other people to try and stimulate the rest of the community to step up. Speaking about the rebuilding, do you know anything at this point what your insurance situation is? Will insurance cover some portion of it or all of it, or do you know right now?
I think right now we're still in a preliminary stage. We're waiting for the insurance to send out their representatives to kind of assess the damage, and see if there's anything that can be saved. But based on the fire department's initial investigation, there's nothing that can be saved. But we need the insurance company's final comment on that to know where we go from there.
Right. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that your insurance does as much as possible out there. As you're thinking, this may be a little bit premature, but it's going to take you some time to raise money from whatever source is going to happen. I mean, there certainly still are things that you can begin to do before things start getting hammered and nailed and concrete poured and stuff like that. Have you begun any discussions? Are you working with any architects or contractors or people in the building business about what you may do, or is that still a little premature?
That we are just now getting ready to put out a notice.
Okay.
Asking all of the builders and architects in the area, because we really want to have this done by locals.
Right.
So we would like a local architect and designer, a local contractor, to go ahead and offer their services. Say that they would like to be considered to be not only the contractor and designer, but also maybe the project manager, and get this done. And we find that our building community is excellent.
Yeah.
And all of the builders and all of the subcontractors work well together. And we found that collectively they make the projects happen, and that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, and there's been some history of that in our area down through the years, where the building community has stepped forward, and in some cases, I'm thinking a little bit here of the White Barn, which now has been a couple of decades ago, but people from the building trades, there was volunteer activity on that, but there were professionals from the building trades also. And my understanding, I wasn't here at the time, my understanding is a lot of them donated their time or provided materials at their cost. You know, they tried to take steps to hold costs to a minimum. So there is a bit of history like that around here. Hopefully we'll see that again.
We've had a couple of building supply companies already contact us.
Oh, wonderful.
And they offered either materials or a cash donation. And we're just
that's great.
We're just amazed at the outpouring of support. So
yeah, that's fantastic. Well, that's a testimony to the role the community center played, because now the community is ready to step in. When you need help, they're ready to. Sounds like folks are ready to return.
Exactly.
That's really, really great. And I'm sure a timeline is kind of impossible to determine at this point. It depends on how quickly you can raise money, and we all know the reality of construction in these times. Every contractor, every subcontractor is busy with work, so it's hard. You can't get things to happen tomorrow.
Right.
And all of us who have just had small projects around our house know that you've got to schedule those well in advance.
Absolutely.
So obviously a large project like this, which will be a sizable structure, is going to take some time to plan and get done. What if anything, those groups, I'm going to circle back for a second, the groups that used your main hall, the Lions, those organizations, the Rotary, all those folks, the churches, the private groups, are there any alternatives for them? Are they kind of just out of luck at this point?
We have some obvious facilities that they can rent. The Gualala Art Center is obviously one that they can rent from. But knowing the Art Center, they've got a lot of usage, so their availability might be a little slim.
Yeah.
What we're doing as a board, we're going to reach out to the businesses in the community, and see if there's any vacant space that we might be able to rent from them, and especially one large enough to hold meetings and functions.
Yeah.
and then offer that back to the groups that we've unfortunately had to call and cancel their events.
Oh boy. Yeah.
And say, hey, we've now found a new place for you, and we'd like to offer this to you at the same price we would charge at the community center.
That's great. So you're going to do everything you can do, bottom line.
Absolutely, yes.
And that's really great. Kevin, I'm going to ask you to tell our viewers how they can personally help. I don't know if anybody watching this has got their checkbook handy and is going to write you another $100,000 check. I'm going to hope that there is, but I'm going to guess there's a lot of folks who would like to donate, who may not be able to donate at that level, but can do something. Or will tell their friends of greater means to write a bigger check, or we want people to hear about that. How can people step up and help?
Well, we've kind of established a rebuilding fund.
Okay.
Right now we're doing it the old way, and that's write a check, put it in the mail, and send it to us.
Okay.
We're also looking at trying to set up an online pay fund where they can go online and do that as well, but that's still in the preliminary stage.
Okay.
But anybody interested can write a check made payable to the Gualala Community Center, mail it to Box 263, Gualala, California 95445.
And for the viewers, we'll put that address up at the end of this show so people can get it down. So I can simply write a check and mail it to you in that way if I want to do it.
Absolutely, and they can also go to the Gualala Community Center website.
Okay.
And unfortunately, I don't remember what that website name is, but you could probably just type in Gualala Community Center.
Yeah.
And they will be able to find the tax ID number as well. So any donation that comes in is tax deductible. Right.
Yep, that's good to know because you're a nonprofit. You're a 501c3, a nonprofit organization. So donations, you can get the maximum allowable deduction for these donations. So that's an added benefit to people who care to donate. Kevin, anything else you want to add about this whole thing? I will come back to one thing. This is the unfortunate part, and I'm sorry to have to bring this up, but we learned, pretty quickly that this fire was man-made. A human being started this fire. I don't know if we know if it was an inadvertent or intentional. That's up to the law enforcement and the courts to figure that out. But do you want to say anything about that? Really unfortunate.
We do know that it was arson.
Yeah.
And the sheriff's department was quick to identify the suspect and take them into custody. It's just unfortunate that someone would feel the need to destroy such an important piece of our community. Well,
yeah.
actually to destroy anything, but that they chose the community center to set on fire and destroy a part of our community fabric.
Yeah, it is unfortunate, and justice will have to take its course, and we'll all be watching that. That's out of our hands at this point. We'll be watching that from a distance, and we in the meantime, your board, and a lot of members of this community are going to be involved with trying to put the pieces back together and rebuilding this. So,
all right.
Kevin, I do thank you for your time very much. Once again, folks, this is Kevin Evans. He's the board chair of the Gualala Community Center, and he's just been talking about the recent devastating fire that the community center suffered. But he's also told us a bit what he knows right now about their plans to rebuild and how the community can help. So we've got some tragedy, but Kevin, you've shared with us some hope for the future, and that is really great. Kevin, I wish you all the very best, and I do thank you for talking with us today.
George, thank you so much for the opportunity to share our story.
All right. Take care now.
You too. Have a great day.